The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, sequel to Morrowind, The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, and predecessor or prequel to The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and prequel to The Elder Scrolls Online, and prequel to The Elder Scrolls 6. No, that's going to come out, but I don't think it ever will. So what is Oblivion? It is, like all the other Elder Scrolls games, a decent fantasy RPG with hack and slash elements, class building, intricate characters, a wide world to explore, and plenty of quests to do and secrets to find. So, let's go on with reviewing The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Now, for the next 3 games we'll be reviewing, whichever one I'm doing currently, Morrowind, Oblivion or Skyrim, going to split the episode into 6 main points. Number 1 being the NPC interactions you may have with other non-player characters, NPCs, and whether NPCs are essential or not. Number 2 being on the factions and their quest lines as well as side quests. Number 3 being on the quest and journal systems and more on the main quest. Number 4 being the impact your player character, the one that you control, has on the world or the country that the game's taking place in Tamriel. Number 5 on puzzles and dungeons and how hand-holdy they are and how the dungeon layouts are. And number 6 is on the soundtrack. Point number 1. NPC interactions and essential characters. Thankfully, the dialogue of NPCs, or the amount of topics you can choose to talk to of an NPC, is still an acceptable level. Not Morrowind style dialogue, but still fairly interesting. Main plot characters normally have the most topics to talk about, normally about 5 or 6, and they normally have a reasonable amount to talk about on that particular topic. However, like I said before, I do have a problem with the new addition of essential NPCs. Making half of the NPCs, non-playable characters in Oblivion, immortal is the worst form of hand-holding in any video game possible. It restricts the player and makes them feel weak and that they're not in an organic, living, breathing world because that a lot of the characters in the game are immortal and cannot die. All this proves to the actual gamer who is playing the game is that the developers do not believe they should be given free will to gamers, and that the developers want the gamers to follow a strict path and have no freedom in choice of the gameplay. This can bore many die-hard fans of video game series, especially the Elder Scrolls, because making lots of characters or NPCs in Oblivion immortal shows the developers of the game, Bethesda, have a very strict, fixed mindset inbound, and it makes them feel and it can make gamers feel very constricted because of this. Hopefully I have made my point clear enough, but unfortunately if I haven't, then I hope that maybe you can kind of see the basic gist of where I am going. That basically, making non-player characters immortal constricts the player. Point number 2. Factions within Oblivion. Okay, admittedly, factions in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion weren't as good as Morrowind's. Still, they had their charm, though. I mean, take, for example... Well, let's just start from the beginning. There's 4 main factions: the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, Thieves Guild, and the Dark Brotherhood, which is the variant of Morag Tong from the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Fighters Guild and Mages Guilds can be found in every single city, spanning basic quest lines. Some of them were slightly more unique than others, some of them definitely weren't. The Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood were the best in my opinion, or at least the first half, but I'll get onto the Dark Brotherhood later. In this video that you're seeing now, the final main quest of the Thieves Guild questline, known as the Ultimate Heist, where you have to break into the Imperial Palace and complete several interesting puzzles, including retrieving a shield, I believe, so that you can unmask the Grey Fox's master plan, or the final piece's master plan at least. And then we move on to the Dark Brotherhood. Okay, so the Dark Brotherhood was fine for the first part of the quests, or the first set of the quests. Actually, some really interesting ones, especially the one being shown now, known as Who Done It, which in my opinion is the best quest of all the Elder Scrolls series, where you had to go into a house and murder off the guests one by one, like in Cluedo, or Clue for you American counterparts, if you are out there. But with that aside, after a certain mission, which I cannot unfortunately remember, in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood questline, the main man of it all, or the speaker for the Night Mother, Lucian, whatever his name is, tells you to go to the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary in Shadenall and kill everyone there. The fun time is now over. Now let's do some boring, location-based quests. Let's go to a place, pick up some instructions, kill some die, and come all the way back with no fun or real moral value whatsoever. Out went the windows for quests and factions in the Dark Brotherhood there. So, although Oblivion did have some interesting factions, it fell a bit short, especially in terms of its predecessor. Point number 3. The quest and journal system. Although the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion did have a solid journal system compared to the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, in which you could track your current, active and inactive and already completed quests, the quest system was in shambles. The new little floaty arrows that pointed you to wherever you needed to go and know exactly where every single location in Oblivion was created. This broke the game's matter and made it feel plastic, because you now intentively knew every single location within the game, how to get to every single location in the game, where nearly every single location in the game was, and had no option to turn it off. Well, you did, but the game was so thin and pasty on results of how to actually get to a location during a quest without the quest markers, you'd failed at the quest. Or you just generally failed and were never going to complete the quest without the quest markers. Although this point was brief, hopefully it's been more deeply analytical, I can't pronounce the word. It's been more of a deep analysis than you thought it would be, and I do not have the heart to continue onwards. It's one of my hated subjects of the test series because of its stupidity and failure to kind of build upon in each game. Point number 4. The impact on the world that your character makes in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Like in Morrowind, this point is hard to break down. It truly is, because although yes, after completing the Thieves Guild questline and becoming the Grey Fox, characters such as Thieves do announce you as the Grey Fox. And yes, after completing the main storyline, and if you have the Shivering Isles DLC, and you do travel to the Shivering Isles and meet the beggar at the start, you can announce yourself as the hero of Kvatch. So you do have a slight impact on the world in terms of dialogue and actually the NPCs notifying you. However, for another example, taking the main storyline as this, your role within the main story has little impact on the world, especially after what you've done. During the end of the game, one of the Emperor's sons, Martin, turns into a giant yellow flying eagle creature and attacks the giant Daedric Lord that came through the portal. And all you get to do is stand and watch. And then after this great battle, you're not even renowned for what you've even done. Despite going around closing numerous portals, creating a ritual, old Martin gets to be the saviour because he slayed the big red demon. Oh, and also buying horse armour DLC and then purchasing it for your horse in the game does not have an impact on the world. Sorry, Bethesda. The DLC just didn't go as well as you planned. Point number 4. Puzzles in Oblivion. There were some good puzzles in Oblivion. The retrieval of the Shield of the Crusade was a very good and interesting puzzle. Made you think, wasn't too hand-holdy. It's actually made to a new word, hand-holdy. And it gave the player depth. and made them use their amazing power of their little fat piece of fat in their brain, in their head, known as their brain. Unfortunately, the dungeon layout was, and still is, very boring. Caves are often narrow, very slim, have very basic enemies, and are designed with as little thought as physically possible. As you can see in this video, it clearly illustrates that dungeons were very boring and very, very slim. Other than like the skill upgrade thing that's being shown right now, you can see in the background, rocks are very boring, the textures are bland, enemies are very basic, normally only consisted of bandits, wolves, sometimes orcish and trolls and things like that at best, but they're just so simple and made with little design to only appease the ficklest of the crowd. Point number 6. The soundtrack of Oblivion. Compared to the other games, especially Skyrim and Morrowind, this was probably my least favourite soundtrack of the series. I didn't listen to it as much as the previous games as Morrowind and Skyrim, although you don't normally listen to soundtracks ridiculously a lot from video games, but still. Compared to the other two games, this one wasn't exactly my favourite. It's too brass, open-ended, I guess, and too, I wouldn't say the word vengeful, but very dramatic compared to the other more calmer and more sequenced sets of music for main themes and soundtrack you had in Morrowind and Skyrim. Like in the previous video, the final bits of the video will be played out from the main theme of the game.